Let's talk about securing hidden APIs. And when I say hidden APIs in this context, clearly I'm talking about APIs that should be hidden but frequently are not, hence the security risk. Could be help pages, could be robots.txt, it could be Google just indexing stuff. Regardless, there are many APIs out there we don't just want the public randomly hitting. In order to talk about how we secure these APIs, I'm going to direct you to some pre-existing material. And in this case, that material is OWASP, the Open Web Application Security Project, and in particular, their top 10 most critical web application security risks document. I've got a number of courses out there on Pluralsight already that talk you through the OWASP top 10, either specifically for ASP.NET, including heaps of code samples, or very generically in my OWASP top 10 big picture course. So there's plenty of material. Now the reason I'm bringing OWASP up in this context is that in the top 10 they have number 7, which is this: missing function level access control. This is precisely the problem we have when hidden APIs get exposed. The issue is not that there's a documentation page, or that it's in the robots.txt, or that it's even Googleable. The issue is that the API hasn't been properly secured. Now, of course, if it was properly secured, that may well actually solve the problem of it coming up in a Google search anyway, which by extension could probably keep it out of the robots.txt file. But regardless, the assumption you have to work on is that the API can be found and that your defense is correct function level access controls. Because that's such a broad topic and access controls are so specific to the implementation, it's not something I'm going to go into detail on here. But access controls could range from simply ensuring the user is authenticated, through to role-based access controls, where we're going to look at the identity of the user and see what it is that their role is allowed to do, through to individual user controls, where we want to apply a set of permissions based on the specific identity requesting the service. We're going to talk more about authentication and authorization later on in this course and go into that in a little bit more detail then. But clearly the point here is that there must be the correct authorization controls around the resource. Now, we looked at several different ways that a resource on the web can be found. I'm saying resource because what I'm about to say applies equally to APIs as it does to web pages or documents or anything else that needs to have appropriate access controls. So we looked at several ways. There are other ways that these sort of resources can be discovered. So for example, what if the source code for the site is made public? There are lots of examples of things like GitHub accounts being brute forced. There are disgruntled employees. There's even unintentional code leakage. See how many examples are up on Stack Overflow where internal implementations have been inadvertently disclosed. So that's source code. What about things like log files? How well are those log files protected? What are the points that they're exposed? Web server log files in particular can be a treasure trove because they detail all the paths that are present within the website, certainly the ones that are being hit by users. Then there's the risk of things like proxy servers recording requests. Particularly if it's not an HTTPS request, there's a risk the proxy server could be monitoring and disclosing the resources that a user accesses. And again, that could be resources that they're accessing via their mobile device, and they're inadvertently disclosing the presence of the APIs that it's talking to. There are many, many ways that the presence of these APIs can be disclosed. And we've seen a bunch of these firsthand already throughout this course. Clearly, the conclusion of what we've seen so far in this module is simply that access controls are critical. And indeed, that's why missing function level access control is still there in the OWASP top 10. This remains a serious risk, and it's possibly even more of a risk for APIs due to the fact that they're not so immediately apparent than what it is for HTML websites. So do secure those APIs that you may think nobody else can see.